Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to tonight's enchanting bedtime story. As the world grows quiet and the stars twinkle gently above, let yourself drift into a world of magic and adventure. In the kingdom of Eldoria, where dreams and reality blend into one, a young adventurer named Rayner embarks on a journey that will shape his destiny and the fate of the entire kingdom. Tonight, we follow Rayner's path as he seeks to protect an ancient power that has fallen from the heavens, a celestial star that holds the balance between light and darkness. Join him as he faces the ultimate challenge, the battle against the Dark Shadow King, a dark force bent on plunging Eldoria into eternal night. Alongside him is a loyal companion, a talking silver-furred fox named Finnick, whose wisdom will guide him in the most perilous of trials. So, as you settle in and prepare to drift off to sleep, let your imagination take flight on the wings of this magical journey. Feel the warmth of the stars' light and the courage of Raina as he steps into his destiny, knowing that with every step he brings hope to a world in desperate need. Long ago, in a time forgotten by most, the kingdom of Eldoria was bathed in the light of the celestial stars. These stars were no mere points of light in the sky, but powerful beings that watched over the world. Each star was said to hold within it the energy of the cosmos itself. The people of Eldoria revered the stars as protectors, believing that as long as the stars shone brightly, the land would remain in balance. However, one night, the peaceful sky was torn apart. A single star, brighter and more powerful than any that had come before, descended from the heavens. It was the heart of Eldoria, a star of unimaginable magic and light. Its fall caused a rippling wave of energy that spread across the land. The wind howled, the earth trembled, and for a brief moment, all of Eldoria stood still, watching the star as it blazed down to the earth. The star did not crash into the ground, but instead it landed softly in a hidden valley, deep within the whispering forest. The air around it shimmered with an ethereal glow, and all who saw it were mesmerized by its beauty. The heart of Eldoria was the embodiment of pure magic, capable of granting its possessor the ability to reshape the world. It was said that whoever could claim the star's power would control the fate of Eldoria and perhaps the entire realm. But with great power came great danger. Among the many who sought the star, there was one who would stop at nothing to claim its magic for himself. This was the Dark Shadow King, a tyrant who had long coveted the star's power. His heart was consumed with darkness, and his desire to bring the world under his rule knew no bounds. He sought the star not to protect the kingdom, but to plunge it into eternal night. The heart of Eldoria had to be protected, hidden away from those who would use it for evil. But the search for the star had begun, and those brave enough or foolish enough to seek it would soon embark on a perilous journey filled with dangers both magical and mortal. Raina was just a 16-year-old boy living in the village of Briarwood on the edge of Eldoria. His life had been simple, spent among the trees, the fields, and the songs of the river. But there was something within Raina that yearned for more. He had always felt a pull, an invisible thread guiding him towards something greater. A sense of adventure ran through his veins, and the tales his father told him of knights, wizards, and lost treasures only fueled that fire. The night the star fell, Raina had been lying on the grass, staring up at the sky. It had been a peaceful evening, the kind of night where the stars twinkled serenely. But then the calm was shattered. The brightest light Raina had ever seen streaked across the heavens, and for a moment, It seemed as though the stars themselves were speaking. Rayner's heart raced. He had heard the stories of the heart of Eldoria, the star that could change the world. Could it be true? Could the star have fallen to the earth? The thought filled him with excitement, and the curiosity that had always burned within him now became a fire. The next morning, without telling anyone, Rayner packed a small satchel. He filled it with only the essentials: some bread, water, a knife, and a few other small tools that might come in handy. With a final glance at his home, Rayner set out toward the whispering forest. As he walked through the quiet village, he couldn't help but feel the weight of his decision. The forest was known to be dangerous, filled with magic, both wondrous and terrifying. But Rayner had always felt a deep connection to nature and the wild. Perhaps, he thought, it was his destiny to find the star, to protect it from those who would misuse its power. Rayner made his way through the forest's edge, where the trees grew tall and twisted. The air was thick with mist, and the ground beneath his feet was soft, almost like the earth itself was alive. The whispering forest was a place where the winds seemed to speak, carrying secrets and ancient knowledge. But the forest also held dangers: creatures of shadow, enchanted beasts, and the mysterious wraiths that were said to guard the secrets of the forest. Rayner felt his heart race as he ventured deeper into the forest. The path ahead was unclear, but he trusted his instincts. He had no map, no guide, and yet he felt as though something was leading him forward, pulling him closer to his goal. The sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the forest. Rayner had been walking for hours, with only the sound of his footsteps and the occasional rustling of leaves to keep him company. As the forest grew darker, Rayner's sense of unease increased. The whispering forest was known for its enchantments, and the deeper one went, the more unpredictable the magic became. It was then that he heard a soft rustling in the bushes. At first, he thought it was just another animal, but as the sound grew closer, he felt a chill run down his spine. Something was watching him. Out of the underbrush stepped a creature, a fox, but not an ordinary fox. This one had fur as silver as moonlight, and its eyes glowed with an ancient intelligence. The fox regarded Rayner with a calm, knowing gaze, as if it had been waiting for him. "I am Finnick," the fox said, its voice clear and melodic. "And you are Raina, the one who seeks the heart of Eldoria." Rayner froze, staring at the fox in disbelief. You can talk?" Finnick chuckled, the sound soft and comforting. "Indeed I can. I am not just any fox, young adventurer. I am the guardian of this forest, entrusted with protecting the secrets of the star. And it seems that our paths have crossed for a reason." Rayner blinked, still trying to wrap his head around the fact that a fox could speak. "Are you here to stop me?" he asked, unsure whether the fox was an ally or another obstacle in his path. Finnick shook his head, his silver tail flicking with the motion. "No, Raina. I am here to help you, but you must understand, the journey you are on is not without great peril. The Dark Shadow King, the one who seeks the star's power, is already on his way. You will need all the help you can get if you hope to find the star before he does." Rayner's heart pounded. The Dark Shadow King. He's already looking for the star? Finnick's eyes darkened slightly. Indeed, his power is immense, and his heart is filled with darkness. He will stop at nothing to claim the heart of Eldoria for himself. That is why I have come. You must find the star before him, for the fate of Eldoria hangs in the balance. Rayner nodded, his resolve hardening. He had known that the journey would be dangerous, but hearing the truth from the wise fox made it feel all the more real. He was not just a boy seeking adventure. He was now part of something much bigger, a fight between light and dark. I'll do whatever it takes, Rayner said firmly. I won't let him have the star. Finnick smiled, his fur shimmering in the fading light. Then we shall begin our journey together. Follow me, Rayner, and trust in your heart. The path ahead will test you, but you are stronger than you know. And with that, Rayner's adventure truly began. The forest had a life of its own. The trees stretched high above, their gnarled branches twisting into the sky like ancient fingers. A soft breeze rustled through the leaves, carrying with it faint whispers, as if the forest itself was speaking in a language long forgotten. Rayner followed Finnick, who seemed to glide effortlessly through the dense underbrush, his silver fur gleaming in the dimming light. For hours, they traversed the forest, the path growing increasingly narrow and winding. The deeper they ventured, the thicker the mist became, swirling around them like a living thing. It felt as though the forest was closing in, and Rayner's every step was watched by unseen eyes. He had heard tales of the enchanted creatures that roamed these woods, but nothing could have prepared him for the eerie atmosphere that enveloped him now. Do not be afraid, Rayner. Finnick's voice broke through the unsettling silence. The forest may seem ominous, but it is only testing your resolve. It is a place of magic, and magic requires patience and trust. Rayner nodded, though he couldn't help the knot of unease tightening in his stomach. His mind raced with questions. What exactly was he walking into? What dangers lay ahead? And what would he do when he found the heart of Eldoria? He had no answers, only a sense of duty and a heart full of courage. After what seemed like an eternity, they reached a clearing. The trees parted to reveal a massive stone archway, half covered in ivy and moss. At its base, a narrow stream trickled quietly, reflecting the pale light of the moon. Finnick stopped at the edge of the clearing and turned to Raina. "This is the entrance to the Valley of Shadows," he said softly. "Beyond this point, you will face the wraiths, the dark creatures that serve the Shadow King. They are not of this world, and they are drawn to the light. If they sense your fear, they will come for you." Rayner swallowed hard. He had heard of wraiths, shadowy figures that haunted the darkest corners of Eldoria. They were said to be the spirits of those who had succumbed to darkness, forever bound to serve the Dark Shadow King. The idea of facing them sent a chill through his bones, but he steeled himself. "I am ready," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Finnick studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. But remember, Raina, the wraiths are not merely physical. They will try to twist your mind, show you your deepest fears. Stay true to your purpose, and they will have no power over you." With a deep breath, Raina crossed the threshold of the archway, stepping into the Valley of Shadows. The atmosphere shifted immediately. The air grew heavier, colder, as though the very landscape was soaked in sorrow. The valley stretched out before him, a desolate wasteland of jagged rocks and withered trees. The only sound was the distant echo of dripping water. Suddenly, Rayner felt it, an overwhelming presence. Shadows shifted around him, coalescing into shapes that were too vague to fully grasp. He could hear whispers, soft and mocking, rising from the darkness. "You think you can stop the Dark Shadow King?" one voice hissed. "You are nothing, just a child, lost in a world of power far beyond your reach." Rayner clenched his fists, refusing to let the words take root in his mind. He had come too far to turn back now. "Do not listen to them." Finnick's voice echoed in his ear, steady and calm. "They are but illusions, reflections of your own doubt. You are stronger than they will ever be." Rayner nodded and pressed forward, trying to ignore the growing shadows that seemed to stretch and writhe around him. He knew that the wraiths were only trying to break him, to make him question his purpose, but he wouldn't let them succeed. He had a mission, and nothing would stop him from completing it. The shadows grew more intense, and Rayner could feel his resolve beginning to waver. Strange visions flashed before his eyes. His family, his village, his home, all fading into darkness. His heart clenched, and for a moment, he felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. Would he ever see them again? Would they be safe if he failed? Stay focused, Raina, Finnick urged, his voice unwavering. The heart of the darkness lies ahead, but so does the light. You must believe in yourself. Your destiny is in your hands. Rayner took a deep breath, clearing his mind. He would not let these wraiths define him. With renewed strength, he pushed forward, his footsteps steady and sure. The whispers grew fainter, and the shadows seemed to recede as he moved closer to his goal. Finally, they reached the heart of the valley, where a large, craggy rock formation loomed. At its base was a dark pool, its surface as smooth as glass, reflecting the eerie glow of the surrounding shadows. "This is the place," Finnick said quietly, his eyes glowing softly. "The wraiths are bound to this pool, but they will not allow you to pass easily. You must face them head-on and show them that your light is stronger than their darkness." Rayner stepped forward, feeling a surge of courage rise within him. He was no longer the frightened boy who had left Briarwood. He was a young man, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With Finnick by his side, he knew he could overcome anything. Suddenly, the wraiths emerged from the darkness, their forms flickering and shifting like smoke. Their eyes burned with malice, and their whispers became a chorus of taunts. "Foolish boy," one hissed, "you cannot defeat us. We are the shadows that dwell in your heart." Rayner raised his chin, meeting their gaze. "I am not afraid of you," he said, his voice steady. "I will not let you or the Dark Shadow King take this world." As the wraiths advanced, Rayner focused all of his energy on the light within him. He felt the warmth of his courage, the strength of his resolve, and in that moment, the shadows faltered. They hissed and writhed, unable to withstand the power of his light. Finnick stepped forward, his silver fur shimmering. "Well done, Rayner," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You have proven yourself worthy of the next step in your journey." Rayner watched as the wraiths dissolved into nothingness, their voices fading into silence. The darkness had been banished, but he knew the true test was still ahead. The Valley of Shadows had tested Rayner, but it was nothing compared to the challenge that lay ahead. As the wraiths faded into nothingness, the dark pool at the center of the valley rippled, sending a shiver through Rayner's spine. It was as if the very earth beneath him had sensed the stirring of something ancient, something evil, awakening from a long slumber. Finnick, who had remained silent as Rayner faced the wraiths, now spoke softly. "The Dark Shadow King is close. His power grows stronger the closer we get to the lake. You must remain vigilant." Rayner nodded, his heart beating with a mix of excitement and fear. The star, the key to saving Eldoria, was near. He had no idea how he would confront the Dark Shadow King, but he couldn't afford to turn back now. He had come this far. His village, his people depended on him. The path ahead grew darker still. The once ethereal glow of the forest now replaced by an unsettling gloom. The trees twisted and groaned as if in pain, their leaves blackened and curled at the edges. The air was thick, and each step seemed to draw Rayner deeper into the heart of the darkness. He could feel the weight of an unseen presence, a malevolent force watching his every move. "It's here," Finnick whispered, his silver fur bristling with tension. "The Dark Shadow King's lair lies beyond the fog." Rayner's breath caught in his throat. He could see it now, a dense fog swirling over the ground, thick and suffocating. Through the mist, the faint outline of a large structure began to emerge. A towering castle, its spires jagged, like the teeth of a great beast, loomed in the distance. It seemed to rise out of the very shadows, as though it had been born from darkness itself. "This is where the star rests," Finnick said, his voice low. "But the king will not give it up easily." Rayner clenched his fists. He had come too far to falter now. He had to push forward, for Eldoria, for his family, and for the future of the kingdom. With Finnick by his side, he stepped into the mist, the air growing colder with each step. As they approached the castle, the mist thickened, swirling around them like tendrils of smoke. Rayner felt his senses dulling, the world around him blurring into an indistinct haze. The castle's silhouette became distorted, and he heard whispers, low, guttural murmurs that seemed to come from all directions. "You should turn back, boy," one voice hissed, a harsh rasp that seemed to scrape against his very soul. "You are nothing in the face of true power." Rayner's heart pounded, but he refused to listen. The whispers were just the dark Shadow King's trickery meant to weaken his resolve. "I'm not afraid of you," he muttered under his breath. Finnick's voice cut through the fog like a beacon. "Stay focused, Raina. We are nearing the heart of the kingdom's magic. The star calls to you, and it is your destiny to protect it." With Finnick's encouragement, Raina pushed forward. The mist parted just enough for them to see the massive doors of the castle. A dark energy seemed to radiate from the castle, an oppressive force that weighed down on Rayner's chest. He could feel the presence of the Dark Shadow King, a malevolent force that had once ruled Eldoria with an iron fist, a king whose heart was as cold and dark as the night itself. Rayner swallowed his fear and gripped the hilt of his sword. The final confrontation was upon him. The doors of the castle creaked open with a slow, ominous groan, revealing a grand hall bathed in an eerie violet light. The walls were adorned with ancient tapestries depicting the rise of the Dark Shadow King, his rise to power, his conquest of Eldoria, and the sorrow he had spread throughout the land. At the far end of the hall stood a throne, a massive seat of black stone, and upon it sat the Dark Shadow King himself. He was a towering figure, draped in flowing black robes that seemed to merge with the shadows around him. His face was hidden in the folds of his hood, but his eyes, pale, glowing eyes, burned with a terrible intensity. Rayner felt the weight of those eyes as they locked onto him, as if the king was peering straight into his very soul. "Well, well," the Dark Shadow King's voice echoed through the hall, deep and resonant, like thunder rolling across a stormy sky. "The boy has come. How brave of you." Rayner stood tall, trying to hide the fear that threatened to creep into his heart. "I've come for the star," he said, his voice firm, "and I will not let you have it." The Dark Shadow King let out a dark laugh, a sound that sent shivers down Rayner's spine. "You think you can stop me?" The king's voice reverberated through the hall, chilling the very air. "The star belongs to me. It always has. And when I reclaim it, I will plunge this world into eternal darkness. Your light will be extinguished, Rayner." "I won't let you," Rayner replied, drawing his sword. It glinted in the dim light, the blade seeming to hum with energy, as though it too knew the importance of this moment. The Dark Shadow King raised his hand, and the shadows around him twisted and writhed like living creatures. From the depths of the darkness, wraiths emerged, their ghastly forms flickering in and out of existence. They surrounded Rayner, closing in from all sides. "Your bravery is your undoing, child," the Dark Shadow King hissed. "You will fall before me, as all who dared challenge my rule have." Rayner's heart raced, but he stood firm. He could feel the weight of the star's power calling to him, urging him onward. He wouldn't give up. "Not now, not ever, Finnick," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Help me." The silver-furred fox sprang forward, his fur glowing like a beacon of light. Finnick's eyes were bright with determination, and he snarled at the approaching wraiths. "We face this darkness together, Raina." With Finnick at his side, Rayner charged into battle, his sword flashing as it cut through the shadows. The wraiths shrieked as they were struck, their forms dissolving into nothingness with each blow. But there were too many of them. Rayner could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of their malice pushing him back. They were relentless, and the Dark Shadow King's power seemed to grow with each passing moment. "Is this all you have, boy?" the Dark Shadow King taunted, his voice filled with cruel amusement. "You are nothing." But Rayner did not give up. He could feel the power of the star growing stronger within him, a warmth that spread through his veins like fire. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, focusing on the light that had guided him through the darkest of times. He remembered his village, his family, his friends. He thought of Eldoria's future and of all the lives that depended on him. And then, with a shout of defiance, Rayner called upon the light within him. His sword glowed with an intensity that rivaled the sun itself, and with a single, sweeping motion, he cut through the shadows. The wraiths shrieked in agony, their forms dissolving into nothingness as the light consumed them. The Dark Shadow King roared in fury, but Rayner was no longer afraid. The light of the star surged through him, and he knew that he was the one chosen to protect it. The Dark Shadow King's rage filled the hall, his shrieks echoing off the stone walls as the shadows around him writhed in agony. His wraiths were no more, disintegrated by the pure light of Rayner's sword. For a moment, the silence that followed felt almost unreal, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Rayner stood tall, his heart pounding in his chest. His sword still glowed with the intensity of the star's power, a radiant light that seemed to push back the darkness that threatened to engulf the castle. Finnick stood at his side, his silver fur shimmering in the ethereal glow, his sharp eyes watching for any sign of movement. The Dark Shadow King slowly rose from his throne, his cloak swirling like smoke around him. His eyes, those pale, glowing orbs, burned with a new fury, and for the first time, Rayner could see the king's full face, twisted, scarred, and gaunt. His lips curled into a malevolent smile. "You have done well to come this far, Raina," the Dark Shadow King's voice rasped, thick with venom. "But this is where your journey ends." With a flick of his wrist, the ground beneath Rayner's feet cracked open, and from the depths of the earth, tendrils of pure darkness shot up, wrapping around him like chains. They coiled around his legs, his arms, and before he could react, they dragged him to the ground. Rayner struggled, his muscles straining against the weight of the shadows that bound him. He could feel the oppressive force of the king's magic pressing in on him, suffocating him. His sword, the source of his power, was slipping from his grasp. Finnick leaped into action, darting toward the king with a snarl. "Rayner, don't give in," he shouted. "The light within you is stronger than his darkness." The Dark Shadow King merely raised a hand, and Finnick was thrown back, crashing into the stone wall with a sickening thud. The fox whimpered but quickly recovered, his eyes filled with unwavering determination. Rayner's heart ached as he saw his companion struggle, but he knew he couldn't let Finnick's sacrifice be in vain. With every ounce of strength he could muster, Rayner gritted his teeth and clenched his fist. The tendrils of darkness pulled tighter, but the star's power inside him flared. A warmth, fierce and unstoppable, filled him from the core of his being. He could feel the ancient magic of Eldoria, the very heart of the kingdom, pulsing through him, ready to be unleashed. "I will not fail," Rayner cried out, his voice filled with conviction. With a roar, Rayner summoned the light within him, and the tendrils of darkness recoiled in fear. The shadows that bound him shrieked and writhed as if in pain, but they were no match for the power of the star. The chains shattered, and Rayner sprang to his feet, his sword raised high. The light of the star surged through him, filling the hall with a brilliance that banished the shadows. For the first time, the dark Shadow King's face contorted with fear. "No," he screamed, his hands outstretched as if to stop the oncoming light. "You cannot defeat me. I will be the ruler of all. Eldoria will fall into darkness. And you?" Rayner didn't give him a chance to finish. With a swift, powerful strike, he thrust his sword forward, the blade cutting through the darkness like a blade of light. The sword pierced the king's heart, and with a final agonized scream, the dark Shadow King was consumed by the light. The shadows that had clung to him for so long disintegrated into nothingness, and his form crumbled to dust. Rayner stood in the midst of the glowing light, breathing heavily. The hall was silent once more, the air now free of the oppressive weight of the king's magic. Finnick limped to Rayner's side, his fur singed, but his spirit unbroken. "You did it, Rayner," the fox said, his voice filled with awe. "You've saved Eldoria." Rayner looked down at the sword in his hand, still glowing with the power of the star. The light slowly dimmed, returning to a soft, steady pulse. He felt a deep sense of peace settle over him, as if the very world was sighing in relief. The darkness had been banished, and with it, the dark Shadow King's reign of terror. But even as he stood there, Rayner knew that this victory was not his alone. The star's power had chosen him. Yes, but it had also chosen Eldoria. The balance of light and dark was delicate, and the responsibility that came with the star's protection was far greater than he had ever imagined. "Eldoria is safe," Rayner said, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and resolve. "But I must protect the star and keep its power from falling into the wrong hands again." Finnick nodded, his eyes wise beyond their years. "You are the chosen protector, Rayner. You will guard the star, and you will guard Eldoria." Rayner looked out toward the distant horizon, where the first rays of dawn were beginning to break through the night sky. The battle was over, but the journey was just beginning. He had been chosen not just to wield the star's power, but to safeguard it for all of Eldoria. As Rayner stood in the ruins of the dark Shadow King's castle, the sun began to rise, casting a warm, golden light across the land. The once twisted trees of the whispering forest began to stir, their leaves slowly returning to their natural green hues. The valley, once choked by shadows, now seemed to breathe again, the air fresh with the scent of earth and life. Rayner felt the power of the star within him, its light steady and calm, like a heartbeat that connected him to the world around him. He had faced the darkest of challenges, but he had emerged victorious. Eldoria was safe for now. Finnick stood beside him, his silver fur gleaming in the early light. "The kingdom is healing," the fox said with a quiet smile, "and so are you, Raina. You have done what no one else could." Rayner smiled back, his heart full of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Finnick." The fox's tail swished in acknowledgement. "We make a good team." Together, they walked toward the mystical lake where the star had once fallen, now bathed in the golden glow of the morning sun. The water sparkled like liquid crystal, and for the first time, it seemed calm and peaceful. The star's light pulsed gently from the depths of the lake, a beacon of hope for Eldoria's future. As Rayner knelt by the water, he felt a deep connection to the star, a bond that would never break. He was the protector now, and it was his duty to ensure that the light would never fade. But for now, Rayner allowed himself a moment of peace, a moment to reflect on everything he had overcome. The road ahead would be long, But he was ready. Eldoria needed him, and he would answer the call. And so, with Finnick by his side, Rayner embarked on a new journey, not as an adventurer seeking fame or glory, but as a guardian of Eldoria's light. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. He would protect the star, and with it, the kingdom, for as long as he lived. And as the sun rose higher in the sky, a new day began for Eldoria. A day of hope, a day of light, and a day of endless possibility. As the stars began to fade from the night sky, Raina, now the protector of the celestial star, looked to the heavens, his heart calm and his spirit at peace. He had fulfilled his destiny, but the journey had only just begun. With a final glance at Finnick, his loyal companion, Rayner whispered to the stars, "I will always protect the light." And with that, Eldoria, bathed in the glow of a new dawn, continued to thrive. And so, dear listeners, Rayner's journey continues, as does the story of Eldoria. The celestial star is safe, its light now protected by the brave adventurer who will forever watch over it. The battle between light and dark is a timeless struggle, one that will never cease. But with guardians like Rayner, the light will always endure. As you close your eyes, let the warmth of this story fill your heart. May you find peace in knowing that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to guide us forward. The adventure has come to an end for tonight, but rest assured, the magic of Eldoria will stay with you, whispering in your dreams. Good night, dear listeners, and may your dreams be filled with light and wonder.